On November 13, 1985, an unimaginable tragedy struck the small town of Armero, Colombia. The Nevado del Ruiz volcano, dormant for decades, awoke with fury. In this video, we will detail the tragic story of Omayra, the young girl who fought for 60 hours to survive amidst the rubble, while the world watched, powerless to help. Get ready for a story of courage and despair that still echoes today. Before we start, we are a new channel, and it would mean a lot to us if you could subscribe and give us a like. And your support will help us bring more impactful stories like this one. Omayra Sánchez was born on August 28, 1972. Before the tragedy, Omayra Sánchez lived a simple yet joyful life. Born and raised in Armero, she was part of a close-knit family. Like many in her town, her family depended on agriculture, living in a modest house filled with love and warmth. Omayra was the youngest of 3 siblings and was known for her curiosity and boundless energy. Her best friend, a girl named Maria, lived nearby, and the two were inseparable. They would spend hours playing games, imagining adventures far beyond the boundaries of their small town. Omayra's playful nature and her boundless imagination made her a beloved figure among her peers. Teachers at her school often spoke of her creativity and leadership. At 13 years old, Omayra was a student at a local school where she excelled in her studies. She especially enjoyed mathematics and dreamed of becoming a teacher one day. Described by her teachers as a dedicated student, Omayra was also known for her kindness and her willingness to help her classmates. She often helped her mother with chores around the house and was incredibly close to her older brother, Alvaro. Omayra's life was filled with simple pleasures, playing with her friends after school, helping her family tend to their small garden, and enjoying the occasional family trip to nearby towns. Her parents described her as a girl who was always smiling, full of hope and dreams for the future. November 13, 1985, started like any other day for Omayra and her family. The morning was calm, with the usual routine of school and chores. Omayra had spent the day helping her mother prepare dinner and had been playing outside with her brother when the first tremors were felt. Like many in Armero, the family had heard the distant rumblings of the Nevado del Ruiz volcano in the past, but no one expected what was about to happen. As the evening progressed, the tremors grew stronger, and the air began to fill with an eerie silence. The family gathered inside their home, listening to the sounds of the volcano in the distance. Then, without warning, the lahar struck. The ground shook violently, and within minutes, the streets of Armero were filled with mud and debris. The force of the lahar was overwhelming, tearing apart houses and sweeping away anything in its path. Omayra's family was caught in the middle of the chaos. Her father and brother Alvaro were swept away almost instantly, while Omayra and her mother were trapped under the collapsing walls of their home. The noise of the lahar was deafening, and in the darkness, it was difficult to tell what had happened. Omayra called out for her mother, but the only response she received was the sound of rushing water and the cracking of wood as the house was torn apart. For hours, Omayra clung to life, her body trapped beneath heavy debris. The cold water around her made it even more difficult for her to stay conscious. When the first rescuers arrived, they were shocked to find her still alive, her head just above the water, but her legs pinned by the wreckage. They worked tirelessly to free her, but without the proper equipment, their efforts were in vain. As Omayra's struggle continued, the world watched in disbelief. Journalists from around the globe arrived in Armero to document the devastation. But it was Omayra's face that became the symbol of the tragedy. Her calm demeanor, even in the face of death, captivated the hearts of millions. Frank Fournier's photo of Omayra was published in newspapers across the world, sparking international outrage and a demand for action. The photo not only brought attention to the scale of the disaster, but also raised questions about the response of the Colombian government. Why hadn't the residents been evacuated earlier? Could more have been done to prevent the loss of life? These were the questions on everyone's minds as the photo of Omayra spread across the globe. Omayra's tragic story highlighted the vulnerability of rural communities in the face of natural disasters. Her death became a rallying cry for better disaster preparedness, not just in Colombia but around the world. In the months following the disaster, governments and international organizations began rethinking their strategies for dealing with volcanic eruptions and other catastrophic events. After nearly 60 hours trapped under the rubble, Omayra's body began to show the toll of her ordeal. Her eyes turned red due to lack of oxygen, and her voice grew weaker. Rescuers were helpless to do more for her as her situation worsened. In the early hours of November 16th, Omayra finally succumbed to her injuries. Her passing left a deep emotional scar on those who had witnessed her struggle, and the world mourned for a young girl whose courage transcended her tragic circumstances. The Armero tragedy claimed thousands of lives and forever changed the history of Colombia. Omayra Sánchez became the symbol of this tragedy, her personal struggle encapsulating the suffering of an entire nation. Today, Omayra Sánchez is remembered as a symbol of resilience. Her story is taught in schools across Colombia, and her image continues to remind the world of the human cost of natural disasters. Documentaries, books, and reports continue to recount the tragedy of Armero, ensuring that Omayra's memory lives on. Omayra Sánchez was a victim of a tragedy that could have been avoided. Her story serves as a reminder of the fragility of life. Though the Nevado del Ruiz volcano remains silent today, Omayra's memory endures as a call for justice and change. This was a story of Omayra Sánchez, a young girl whose spirit and courage transcended the tragedy. If you were moved by Omayra's story and made it to the end, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We have many other deep and emotional stories to share, and by subscribing, you help us continue bringing quality content to you. Hit the bell so you're the first to know when the next video is out. Thank you, and see you in the next video.